Shazad, today I feel like we need to talk about something so essential, yet so, I want to say, normal, or I want to say basic as well, that we tend to overlook it. We tend to, sort of neglect the idea that we need to sit down, discuss these matters, and learn more than discuss.
Exactly.
So what is it?
Thank you very much for sharing that as well. And ladies and gentlemen, just the previous week, we actually made sure that we're going to have somebody who had good grip over, kind of sharing what our constitutional rights were. And every now and then we do speak about, freedom of speech and freedom of expression and movement and whatnot. But I think that there's a lot more to this, and we wanted to dig in a little more as well, and we wanted to make sure at World this morning at PTV World that we make people more aware about what their constitutional rights were. So today what we have done is that we've actually picked up a list.
Yeah.
And since it happens to be the first chapter in the Constitution when we speak about fundamental rights, so we are going to discuss those fundamental rights. And we're not going to say that whether, we can practice them in our country or not. Everybody knows how the situation is, and I think that's how it's going to be. But for instance, if I think that people will be more aware of what their rights are, I think they will start practicing it, and it will bring about a change, a very positive change as well. So to discuss what our fundamental rights are, ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by some very apt guests. Both of them, they actually happen to be advocates at Supreme Court as well. And yes, let's see what do they have to say, and whether they have been practicing as students of law or probably practicing law. Have they practiced all of their fundamental rights or not? I think that this is the first question I'll be posing.
Okay.
So ladies and gentlemen, very quickly, we are very lucky that we've actually been joined by Mr. Barrister Afzal Hussain. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine.
Thank you very much for joining us. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much for inviting me, for having me.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
We are glad that you have taken our time, that you're with us as well. And not just that, splendid morning. It's a Monday morning. We want to let people know that, that these are your fundamental rights and you have every right to practice it. Unfortunately, if they cannot, well, first of all, what we need to do is that we need to see whether they know that they have such extensive fundamental rights within the Constitution of Pakistan.
Yeah.
But the first thing which I'm going to ask you is, for all the fundamental rights mentioned in the first chapter, have you practiced them all?
You see, as far as I'm concerned, so far to this very day, my fundamental rights have not been violated.
Okay.
So I never felt need to invoke my fundamental rights through the courts of law.
Yeah.
Whenever someone's fundamental rights are violated, then the person has the right under the Constitution to enforce them through the superior courts of the country. First of all, I would like to explain that what is basically a constitution. A constitution is a social contract between the state and the citizens.
Yep.
So under Article 2A of the Constitution, which objective resolution has become the substantive part of the Constitution, the doctrine of good governance, that the government of the day and its institutions has to ensure that they basically ensure good governance. So this is the first responsibility of the government of the day, to ensure the enforcement of the fundamental rights. Okay. In case there is some violation of fundamental rights, then the person whose rights have been violated is under a moral obligation, and I would say a legal obligation, not in the strict sense, but it is his right, his or her right, to enforce it through the superior courts of the country. Article 199 of the Constitution basically empowers the high courts of the country to enforce fundamental rights, and then Article 184 of the Constitution empowers the Supreme Court of the country to enforce fundamental rights. You must have heard about the suo motu jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Yeah. And that's under Article 184(3), that the Supreme Court, if there is a question of which is related to public interest and is a matter of public importance, then the Supreme Court can take suo motu notice, or under the original jurisdiction, the Supreme Court can pass orders to all governments, provincial or the federal, or all agencies, the law enforcement authorities in the country.
Exactly.
So as far I am concerned, to this very day, God has been very kind. I never felt the need to invoke my to go to the court and file a petition, because my fundamental rights have not been violated.
Yeah,
I have been lucky
when
I
you're privileged, alhamdulillah.
Yes,
but there's like a major segment of the society that needs to learn from you. That's why you're here to share the knowledge as well. Shazad, I do realize you have a quick question. If you can do that, then I want to move on.
All right, so I'll move on to, I think that just because you've said it and you've mentioned it now, I know that for sure that my rights were violated, and I'm going to share an example with you too as well. So for once, when I was a university student, I was visiting my friend, and we were doing this group study thing, and we had a presentation next morning. So we chose to come back together, and that he's going to stay at my place, and then we'll go to the university together next morning. While we were on our way back, on 9th Avenue, right next to I-8, there's this police checkpoint. they stopped me, and I did stop. And then they were like, okay, you know, we need to check your car. I was like, sure, go ahead, check my car. Opened up my boot. I had a snooker stake, I had a horse whip, I had a baseball bat because I was the member of a Samba club. And I used to go there very often and do whatever sports activity I wanted to do. But that gentleman, that police officer, wanted that steel baseball bat for his son or for whoever he wanted. He was like, you know, the bat stays here, you guys leave. And I was like, you know, how can you take my bat? There's no reason that you can take my bat. This is my membership card, you can see it. But he took us to the police station. He actually filed an FIR where he said that we were robbing somewhere near in I-8 and that it was a hassle for all of us, for me and my friend, to actually get out of that situation. We were very worried because we were students. So my rights have been...
Yes. Okay. I would like to add one thing. See, as far the courts are concerned, or even the law enforcement authorities are concerned, as we say that there is always room for improvement. Undoubtedly, there is need for improvement.
There's a hall for improvement.
Yes, undoubtedly. I'll explain.
Yeah.
I would say that there is need to revamp the entire criminal justice system in this country, starting from the police reforms. Then first we need to have educated police officers.
Of course.
We need to make sure that they go through psychological testing as well. Because somebody who has stopped you and he wanted bat for his son or for whatever purpose best known to him, I think he was a psychopath. This is my personal understanding of the matter. Because just to get a bat when you refused, because it was your right and you were absolutely right, you showed your membership card of the Islamabad club, and then he made sure that he wanted to fix you for disobedience, I would say. So he wanted to fix you and he launched an FIR against you and leveled a very serious allegation of theft.
Right.
Exactly.
So it obviously it was a life-changing event because unfortunately, because the system we have, if somebody levels an allegation against you, particularly the police officer, and FIR is registered against you, then the person who is accused, the salutary principle of criminal jurisprudence is innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But unfortunately, because of the practical issues we face every day, the person who is accused, who is innocent until proven guilty, then he has to prove his innocence. Then, you know,
and that's the most difficult part.
That's the most difficult part. And that includes defamation, the social issues, the financial issues, and then the career issues as well.
Exactly.
Because there are so many places where you go, the first question they ask is whether a criminal case has been registered against you, what kind of criminal case, and what was the offense, and what was the outcome, particularly when you apply for visas or jobs abroad. And if you conceal it, it means that you are doing misrepresentation.
Exactly.
And when you explain it, obviously it has an adverse effect on your career path or, you know,
Absolutely.
whatever. So my personal understanding of the matter is that it was very unfortunate what happened to you, and I don't know what is the outcome and what was the outcome. Must have happened a few years ago. I'm sure by now you are acquitted.
Alhamdulillah, everything's fine. So towards the end, I actually had to beg him, touch his feet, and you kind of asked for mercy that, you know, come on, we are still students.
I'll tell you one thing.
Yeah,
yes.
I did. And from there onwards, I never kept a cricket bat even in my boot. And I was like, you know, it's better to be safe.
And that's really unfortunate.
It
I mean,
needs to be
especially...
revamped. You know, the policing, we need to invest more money in policing. You know, we need to make sure that the police in federal capital or in the provincial capitals or anywhere for that matter, we need to make sure that they are educated police officers. When I'm saying officer, it includes the constables.
Exactly.
Because the Thana culture, unfortunately, we have in Pakistan is absolutely, we need to get rid of it.
Of course, of course. Now, here's the thing. You know, when we talk about fundamental rights, Shahzad, there are, of course, so many questions. And I feel like this one particular show, or 40, 45 minutes, cannot do justice to it. But I'm going to take you back to one thing you said, and I want you to sort of highlight and explain that to us as well. So when we talk about a constitution, it should be, or I mean, we think it should be timeless in terms of, you know, now when we talk about ours, there are no amendments whatsoever. Is ours timeless? And you said that there are so many changes, or you want to say additions, that you feel like there should be in our constitution. What are them? And also, when we talk about Riyasat-e-Madina, now this is some conversation we had in detail before the show, so we're just going to try to cover it in a gist as well. When we talk about, you know, launching a welfare state in Pakistan, or making it one, or I mean, at least aspiring to make it one, are we on the way even, or how long are we going to be there then?
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense as well. I mean, he's talking about, of course, there is a taxation is in the constitution, but what sort of how it should be different should definitely be, revised as well. But now coming again back to fundamental rights, when we talk about national identity, to have one, I'm sorry to give you this example, but let's say, sir, if you were stripped of your Pakistani identity, who are you? You're not a Pakistani, who are you in the world? So when we talk about transgenders, this was hardly few years back, they were finally having an ID card and even a passport. So what about their constitutional right to have a national identity?
It's a very good question, but with your permission, I would like to add something.
Sure.
What my learned friend has said.
Yeah.
I think as far the Constitution is concerned, Constitution is Islamic in nature, there is no doubt about it, and there are certain Islamic provisions in the Constitution. So people, the audience must know that the Constitution is Islamic in nature. There are Islamic provisions in the Constitution. It is a matter of opinion, basically, that there is need to improve what implementation. Article 3 of the Constitution clearly states that it is the duty of the state to eliminate all forms of exploitation. You see, all forms of exploitation. So it's, and then to work for the fulfillment of the fundamental principle. So having said that, there are certain provisions, Islamic provisions, right to profess and right to have religious institutions and everything. As for theory is concerned, as for the theory is concerned, the articles of the Constitution are concerned, it is absolutely everything. It is an excellent piece of legislation, I would say. The question is of implementation, basically. Now, moving back to your question, I think it was the apex code of the country. As far I remember, I recall, it was the apex code of the country. The Supreme Court of Pakistan passed an appropriate order for transgenders, and they got their identity cards. My personal viewpoint is that there is need of special legislation to empower transgenders, as there are certain special legislations to empower women, like Harassment at Workplace Act 2010. I think it is, though it is not gender specific, but there is no doubt about it that this particular act empowers women. So I think that there is need to the government of the day and the opposition, because it is a national matter basically, and there should be no politics on national issues. So I think that, and it's also a matter of human rights basically, the fundamental rights of citizens, and because unfortunately that they were born with a disadvantage, I would say. Unfortunately, because the situation.
Or we took it as a disadvantage.
Yes, we took it. I would absolutely, thank you. I stand corrected. We take it as a disadvantage, or it is the way of the world, I would say. Anyway, there is need of special legislation to empower them, that there is need of special quota in the workforce, and there is need that the Baitul Mal we have and the Benazir Income Support Program we have. There are two social welfare programs in Pakistan. I think there is need of special quota for transgenders, that they should be, their medical facilities, they should be paid for medical facilities, there should be some financial assistance as well. So it's a special class basically, and there is need of special classification, and they should be empowered through appropriate legislation and comprehensive legislation, which should include their education rights as well.
Which still needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely. But I love the fact that now
it's a long walk to freedom, I would say. It's a long walk.
Yeah, but I want to add to this. I love the fact that Allama Iqbal Open University is now actually offering free education up till PhD to all transgenders. So, well, I mean, we're taking some foots forward as well. You want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to add, and not just that, there's a school in Lahore as well who are actually disseminating free education to transgenders. Not just that, now we actually have a laser clinic which is dedicated towards transgenders only as well. So I think we are moving in the right direction. But now, sir, since we are talking and we're talking about our very prestigious institutions like police, for example, where we are saying that we really need to revamp the system and come up with some more, sound kind of strategies or probably laws in place as well, where a person cannot forge an FIR onto somebody, which is correct. Now I'm going to come back to a system where you play a very important role and you play a very important role. And I think it's the most prestigious system within our country, and it's the justice system. Now, one of the fundamental rights is the right to fair trial. Sorry, I miss out on that. And I'm not going to ask anything. I want you to speak about it. I've seen people who've murdered people. They're still out in the free, in the open, roaming, having a good life. I've seen people that their land was grabbed. And on the other hand, on the contrary, the person who was the affectee is actually behind the bars. So, how do you think that we can actually have a fair trial in a country where we have seen people getting away with murder, and we have seen people that they were the ones who were the affectees and are behind the bars. Let's speak about
see
it.
Article 10 of the Constitution you are talking about. Right to fair trial. Right to fair trial is very important, and Article 4.
First of all, what you need to tell me is, do we get a fair trial? Let's
absolutely,
be honest.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'll come to that. Article 4 of the Constitution talks about the due process of law. And recently, Article 10A of the Constitution was introduced, which specifically stipulates the right to fair trial. As far my personal experience is concerned, I would say that it's not that the courts or the criminal justice system is not providing fair trial to the citizens, but there is undoubtedly need to improve the system, to revamp the entire criminal justice system. Because let me give you an example from the cybercrime. For cybercrime, you need experts investigating officers. I am certain that there are hardly few IOs working in Islamabad and Rawalpindi region. So, starting from the prosecution viewpoint, so first we need to make sure that the prosecution, which is FIA, Federal Investigating Agency, so we need to have specialized courses for them first, and to make sure that best out of the best, they are appointed as investigating officers and in reasonable number. Number one. Number two, that the judges they must go through trainings. It's not that they are not going through trainings; they are going through certain trainings. Then the lawyers, the expert lawyers, and the criminal justice system is based on CPC, which is the Code of Criminal Procedure, and then the PPC, Pakistan Penal Code, basically. And then there are specialized legislations like PTA, Pakistan Telecommunication Act, which Section 31 speaks about the masking and the certain offences and their punishments. So what is required is that a joint effort, a comprehensive legislation, then training, and before all this, a political will is required and finance is required to revamp the entire criminal justice system. And I think this is the need of the hour, and it's been 72 years. And I believe, yes, we need to do this. Absolutely, it should be top priority for the top-notch judiciary and the government of the day, and all of us, people who are the civil society, I would say.
And we are trying our level best.
We are trying our level best. Very pertinent question.
Yeah, but moving on, of course, Shahzad, I think we already spoke about the fact that there are rights bestowed upon us by the Constitution, but to realize them or to implement them is the meaning.
Today is the day when I actually wish that, I should have actually learned by heart all the articles, 25A and 36 and
you don't have to
Article 8 as well.
Them,
but when we say this article, ladies and gentlemen, it's your responsibility to go and read it in the Constitution, because we are actually over here sitting, making sure that you guys are more aware of your fundamental rights as well. But sir, thank you very much, since we are running short of time as well, and we have one more thing to do today. But very quickly, one last thing which I want to ask is, because we have seen a lot of my friends are actually advocates too, and we have seen that the courts were shut because of COVID-19, and it has had a major impact even on the justice system. And then there are a lot of cases which are pending as well. How do you think it has impacted your work?
Undoubtedly, it has an adverse impact on our work. But I would like to say that this is the sad reality of the world, that we have to handle it and we have to face it. I would only like to add one thing regarding the Article 3, that anything which will exploit a citizen or the rights of the citizen, it will automatically become a matter of fundamental rights. Article 3 is not enforceable, but all fundamental rights are enforceable, provided if they are exploited.
Exactly. And it's a longer debate, and we definitely want to do that, but probably we'll do it some other day as well. But thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us and for making us aware. And there's so many other fundamental rights.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much, sir. We're glad. And there's a list, ladies and gentlemen. And the only purpose we are here sharing all of these fundamental rights with you is so that you know what your rights are, and that next time if somebody is violating your right, you can actually go to the court and take help. I think that this is something which we really need to put in practice as well.
Absolutely. But now of the ongoing pandemic as well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people have been sort of violated, of the right of their life as well, in terms of how normal it was. It's not normal anymore. Like you said, sir, your work has been compromised as well. Everyone's has been. So